Well, welcome, friends. This is Cindy Silva. It's been a while since we've had the conversation, and I've invited Roger Jahnke back to share this space with me today. I'm very excited. Last time we talked, I had a lot of feedback on how people really enjoyed the dynamic of our exchange and the timing of the wisdom that came through. So I want to welcome you back, Roger.
Oh, yes, indeed. What a pleasure to be here. And greetings to everyone who's online. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, and me too. Yeah, I appreciate you making time. I know that you're in demand. You have a lot going on, a new course and training coming up. And um, yeah, the timing of what you're offering and what the world is in need of is coming together for you. And you've invested so many years of you've dedicated your life basically to this path. And so I wonder if you want to share a little bit about your institute and how it all started for you.
Yeah,
Refresh
thank
us.
you. How it all started, I think, is that destiny is something that is hard to describe in relationship to choices that we make and free will and all of that. But I will say that evidence of my life has reflected to me that often I have the idea that I'm going here, and then something just comes in and takes me there. And so a lot of those things happen to me. Uh, I My dad died when I was a little kid. It changed me. I decided I wanted to be a doctor. I went to medical school. It was very disappointing, and it was in the 1960s, and I was resisting the war in Vietnam, and some things came along and just shifted that so that I ended up in a place called Hawaii, which was really interesting because I was living in Ohio, and um, and so there I am in Hawaii, and I ended up in Chinese medicine school, a beautiful experience which trained me not only in clinical Chinese medicine, but everything to do with the Chinese ideals of uh, we'll call it medicine, but what they call it is nourishing life. Nourishing life. The phrase is the Chinese language for it is yang sheng. Yang sheng means nourishing life. So Chinese medicine really isn't diagnosing and treating disease. Chinese medicine is nourishing life and understanding how to turn on naturally occurring healing resources within our own being without needing clinical intervention through the choices that we make from day to day regarding our hydration, our nourishment, our rest, our relationships, our association with our career, the sense of purposefulness, having a relationship with nature, and just more and more all the cool stuff about how we pull the different levers every day by the choices that we make to converge to the highest level of functionality possible. So, as you can imagine, that is immensely compelling.
Mhm.
And so then, having a history as a doctor of Chinese medicine and helping a lot of people to navigate their health problems, but always noticing that most people were not oriented to the idea of taking care of themselves. They had, and this is still very prevalent in our society, that people defer to the idea that medicine means diagnosing and treating diseases, and that until you have a disease, there's not really anything to do except for just live hard and overdo it and have a lot of expectation and be stressed out all the time. And so uh, trying to be a part of how the world gives the humans the opportunities, the world does give the humans the opportunities to be flourishing and at peace, and yet commerce and convenience and so forth have uh, allured people into ways of living that are uh, obviously neither peaceful nor healthy. And so I don't know, I'm just like on the front line of that. That's the battle that I am fighting. That's the hill that I'm climbing. That's the flag that I'm raising. That's the drum that I'm beating. And you know, it's very inspiring.
Yeah, you do it very well. You inspired me to become a teacher and
Hmm.
share. And as you're speaking about nourishing life, I can't help but, because what's in my awareness, I'm watching a lot of these nature documentaries and these animals in the wild, and how their instincts are so strong to protect and nourish life, to bring life forward. And that's their whole focus. They're not distracted by anything else. And you can just see it in everything they do. Their whole
Hmm.
purpose is to um, keep that cycle of life going and protect it and nurture it. And I've always really felt that in you. Like, you have a very strong um, yin balance, right? Like, you've got the yang, get the message out there, let's go, people. um, Progressive, productive, but also there's this really beautiful deep root that you have into the yin nature of how do we come together and
Hmm.
support each other in this, and the communal aspect that you really promote, and I've benefited from. So thank
Hmm.
you.
Thank you. And just a little story to tell about that. I have a very power, and it's about nature and it's about the feminine, a very powerful relationship with rain. And it has recently been raining in California. And there have been times when rain has been a little rare in California. And so I celebrate it. And there's a forest right over there. And as a citizen advocate of nature and access to the forest and so forth, I do sort of volunteer without being invited. Probably illegal what I'm doing, but I do it anyway. Take my shovel, put on my raincoat, my boots, take my shovel, go out, and when it rains really hard like this, I can divert probably, I don't know, like 50,000 gallons of water from, instead of just going straight into the ocean, into the forest.
Mm.
And so that's part of the story. But the other part of the story is that during a really heavy rain last year, when we also had some really reasonable accumulation of rain activity, I was out and it was really coming down, and the water, I call myself a hydrologist, a citizen hydrologist. And the uh, the water was coming down, and I was out there with my shovel, and I've been creating a diversion of some water into an area where I wanted to plant an oak tree, which I just planted this year. And during all of that, I had the sound in my head. I had the sound of a voice, and it was a male voice, like the, I don't know, voice of God, voice of my higher self, whatever it is. And of course, while I was doing what I was doing, I was thinking about all the things that a person can possibly think about. And this voice came and said, turn it all over to the women.
Mm.
And it was just such a stunning moment. And it really had a lot of meaning to me because of the fact that when we train people to be Qigong and Tai Chi teachers, it's usually 65, 75, 80% women in the training. I think that this has something to do with the the impulse for women generally, and for many women, this is really a huge thing. And I think it's probably a pretty big deal for you to create ways to be able to nurture the natural intelligence of whatever it might be. You know, the plants that grow in your yard or in your garden, the children in your family or in your community, the particularly the underserved women who are you know, at risk for being in relationships with these ridiculous uh, uh, violent men who can't figure out what's up and what's down. And so that whole concept of the nature, the natural presence of healing capacity, the yin of the rain, and to be able to nourish the rain out of the gullies that have been created by the roadways and the pathways that were created by the guys who were drilling the oil well. Right out here behind my house, next to the ocean, there used to be a huge oil field. And so over the years, the rain, as it runs off, it gets into this rut that was created by the trucks that were carrying the oil out of here to be able to fund the, you know, the Second World War and all that stuff. And so, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is that there are these naturally occurring, miraculous functional capacities of humans and animals and all the biological that's been on this planet and probably will remain whether the humans figure it out or not.
Hmm.
Back to you.
Yeah, there's so much that comes up just listening to you. I'm going to just bring it in because I've been hosting an I Ching study group, and part of my work in serving other people is working with the I Ching, and I think of the 27th hexagram, which is called nourishment.
Mm.
And so that comes up. And also because we're entering the year of the dragon, I've been doing a little research on that, the mythology of that in Chinese mythology. And I came across a reference to the dragon being the rainmaker, and that they would evoke the energy of the dragon for rain. And you're speaking about your connection to rain, and I know you have some things to say about the entering the year of the dragon, and I'm really curious
Mm.
to have you.
Yeah, let's go there. So, uh, you know, just the whole thing of, let's go back to um, the roots of Qigong. You know, my feeling is that the Qigong is the handle. It's the thing that we can grasp that makes the hammer. Like if it was a hammer, you have to have a hammer. You have to have a handle to get the hammer to really work well. If it's a hoe, to hoe the garden, if you don't have the handle, the long handle on the hoe, it's like, how would you ever accomplish it? So
How you
Qigong kind
leverage
of,
the tool, right? That's how you
yes.
leverage.
So Qigong is like an easy way in to being more conscious. And then once we become a little more conscious, we start to wonder, like, well, how did humans figure this out? And then we start to notice things like the long days of the summer and the short days of the winter and the equal days at the equinoxes. And so now we've got equinoxes and solstices. And those equinoxes and solstices cycle in a pattern of 12 new moons and 12 full moons. I mean, occasionally in a year there will be 13 new moons or 13 full moons, but on average it's 12. And so then if you think of the nature of the world and the four seasons, and then ourselves experiencing the four seasons, that gives you five positions, 5 points of view sometimes called the five elements, sometimes called the five characteristics, sometimes called the five uh, uh, qualities of nature and the world. So then you multiply 5 times 12 and you get 60. So now you've got a pattern of a large pattern of 60 years or 60 months. And every 60 months you get a dragon year, and every 60 years you get a cycling of all of the powers of the animals and so forth that are part of the shamanic tradition of the Chinese culture. So that's all very beautiful. So now we've got these 4 seasons and these celebrations that happen at the solstices and the equinoxes, for which the presence of ourself, the 5th element, can observe and learn and develop bodies of information. And so now we've got these beautiful bodies of information from all the traditional indigenous shamanic cultures that they don't all have a dragon, but they all know about the solstices and the equinoxes and so forth. So within that context, the second new moon following the winter solstice is the first day of spring. And the equinox, the spring equinox, is the middle of the spring. And the Chinese New Year is the first day of the spring, called the Spring Festival. So it's not a day, it's a period. We're in it. We're in it right now.
Yeah, we are.
The what would be called Chinese New Year's Day is right around where we are, depending on which calendar you're using and so forth. And often on the Roman calendar, they put it on a Saturday because now everybody obeys the Roman calendar, which may or may not have been the best idea for humans, but that's what we do. So with that all in mind, we're going from the year of the rabbit to the year of the dragon. And one of the things that's really beautiful about this is to just think of the contrast of a rabbit and a dragon. But also then think of a rabbit in its worst mood and a dragon in its worst mood at the same time as you think about a rabbit in its best mood and a dragon in its best mood. And I don't know, everybody has a different experience from different in their different years, and of course we're all born in different months, and that has some kind of a relationship with all of this too. But in a very, very general sense, the rabbit is associated with kind of home life and simplifying things. And for me personally, that was exactly what happened in the year of the rabbit. It was just excellent for me. And I know that people have gotten sick and died, that the wars have been fought during the year of the rabbit. So I'm just reflecting on the fact that I personally experienced the lovely bunny rabbit. And so we don't know about what's going to happen with the dragon.
Not the rabbit.
Rabbit, right. Interesting thing about the dragon is that, just in general terms, so not talking about how it's going to go for any one person,
Right.
but the big idea of the dragon is that the dragon is a mythological character and therefore is not limited to the, shall we say, the general rules of what we would call dimensional life. So in a way, the dragon becomes like, the dragon is the representative of the capacity to move back and forth between Tai Chi, that's Tai Chi there, the the
Great
yin
ultimate.
symbol, the Tao symbol, however you want to call that. The name of that is Tai Chi. The dragon can move from Tai Chi, the dimensional dualistic world, into Wuji, the transcendental, quantum, boundless and timeless world. And so think of yourself as the dragon. Just to say, just take it on and say to yourself, in right now, we're entering a dragon year, and no matter what else there is about myself and the world, geopolitics, economics, and everything else, but just myself experiencing being with the dragon capacity, then what we get is the ability to get out of our own concerns and considerations and get into an awareness of the transpersonal aspect of ourself, which is immortal, which is eternal. And so if nothing else can be on our mind relative to how to be in a dragon year, one of the things that we can be in a dragon year is aware of the fact that we are not limited, that in some way we are eternal. And of course, we concern ourselves about the body, and we use our mind mostly to concern ourselves about the time limited version of ourself.
Right.
But the dragon suggests that we actually use the mind to, instead of going down into concerns and considerations about time and space and the body, to go up into reflection and insight and revelation about the nature of our the eternal nature of ourself, which cannot get sick and does not die.
Oh my gosh, you're just cracking me up because I just wrote a newsletter Monday to my community and I was literally saying the words you just spoke. I'm gonna have to forward it to you. We're
Oh,
tracking the
cool.
same dragon. I love it. Yeah, well, what you're speaking of, I mean, because we're talking about Chinese astrology, so I'll just bring in a little Western astrology to complement it because things often are happening simultaneously, just seen through a different lens, where we just had Pluto conjunct the sun enter Aquarius, which is again about the bigger picture and not just thinking about ourselves, but going beyond to what's good for everyone. Yeah. And so I'm really, curious to see how this will take shape in the collective. But for me personally, that's all I can report on is my own personal experience and perspective. It's not truth, it's just perspective, is that I am seeing this opening, not just seeing, I'm experiencing this opening between the subconscious and the conscious, like more bandwidth between these aspects of awareness. It's all the same beingness moving through my awareness, but like this yin and yang of the subconscious and the conscious, right? That there's more latitude there. Like
Yeah,
I'm not caught up just in the conscious mind so much as I'm witnessing how the subconscious, which is normally hidden because it's not part of our physical senses, is really noticing how I'm losing interest in the external and my interest and attention is going towards the pressure of evolution moving through me, the subconscious, and how to create in the environment, in the physical world to support that expansion.
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
so I feel
Love
like
that.
that's kind of a dragon energy, like because dragon, when I look at that image, it just looks like a fractal to me. You know how the tail is and the spininess of it, and the fractal energy is that spiraling, um, up and out from what's hidden and below. There's a pressure that's kind of moving up and spiraling out. And in that spiraling and unwinding, new information is brought into the world. And that,
Well, amen.
yeah, and that new
Hallelujah.
information can have, solve problems, that we can't solve with the current level of awareness.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think Qigong, for me, Qigong is a way to be with immediate experience, to create more relaxation and flow in the system, not only my own, but the community that I'm with, so that the larger vehicle of a group can be a container for some awareness to rise up that we can't get at on our own.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of mythology and even some science on the magnitude of impressions and perspectives and perception, all associated with with what the Chinese call the heart mind. In other words, our consciousness. That press in the direction of the fact that consciousness has an influence on that which arises in space-time. And so as you build your community, which I'm thrilled that you're doing, and as we here build our community, and as others who are like us uh, join these communities, and also, if they're crazy enough to want to get involved with it, build those communities for themselves as well, the magnitude, the quotient of intent rises.
Mm.
Now, for me, I think that Qigong is a perfect portal to exploring that and getting deeper into that. And I'm biased all the way to the roof
Me too.
on how that's how it goes. But just to take a moment to acknowledge the presence of the beast that is afoot in the world. Um, I've been thinking about this a lot, and uh, so I'll just mention it briefly. We don't have to linger here, but it seems like the humans are predisposed to uh, angst, and and in that angst to then be predisposed to uh, choosing a side, not a concept, not an array of insight and knowledge, but just a side. And of course, this conspiracy of convenience is, don't study, just entertain yourself, relax, entertain yourself, eat a lot of sugar and drink alcohol. And so now you can't even think. So the whole idea of understanding retreats. It's depreciated. And what rises is this thing about uh, joining, choosing a side, and then saying whatever it is who runs that side says that we should all be thinking and saying. So now here in this little part of our discussion, we have this natural predisposition to the depreciation of personal intelligence, personal fortitude, personal resiliency. And over here, we've got this beautiful opportunity. And so you and I, we're in, and the people who are listening to this are probably in. And so, let's ask this question. Have you chosen a side? And I'll just put it into the red and blue. because, you know, we're caught in that, and say, just to give testimony, I will say that I have never voted red and I have never voted blue. Never. Every election that has ever occurred in the history of my ability to vote, and I'm an older person, I have voted for the person who was offering a more intelligent investigation of the circumstances. And of course, those people always lose. But it's just interesting that this addiction that we have to violence and to sort of deflecting the invitation to become more knowledgeable. And, you know, I mean, the classic line is know thyself, and people don't know themselves and they don't know about the world, and they're just entertaining and they're just feeding themselves all kinds of depreciating inputs. And so this is kind of like what we get. So my question to you is, do we have to have a total collapse and a reconfiguration? Well, we've already done that. I mean, we have the ruins of the Egyptians and the Mayans and so forth that demonstrates to the fact that we've already accelerated to high levels of social capacity and then collapsed again and again. So do you and I have to get out of the earth realm to be able to actually experience the thing that we have such high hopes for? Or, you know, can it ever happen here?
Well, it's a great question. I don't know that I can answer it, but I would go back to what you spoke about earlier when you mentioned immortality. And you know, that immortality isn't about living in the physical body forever. It's about knowing that you have an immortal aspect, and that when you identify with it and you turn your attention and interest towards it, your experience of it is always available. So we are living that now. It's not like it's somewhere in the future. It's choosing it. That's, if we're going to choose a side, that would be a side. You know, I don't know about the other sides, but when you're speaking about this predisposed to angst, I really, you know that there's science to that, in that we're wired to survive, right? And so bad news travels fast because that amygdala is programmed to have a, you know, what would you call it? Like a, can't think of the word, but there's a super high sensitivity there to being aware of a threat. And then we have the other part of the brain, the limbic system, which is more emotional and relational. And then we have the neocortex, which is more, I'm seeing like the three treasures, right? The lower, middle, and upper dantian. It's all in the brain. You know, they're all there in the brain. And now it's like we want to be able to run energy through all of them. We don't want to not have the limbic or um, the lower part. We want to be able to integrate all of those, right? And to
Integration.
yeah, and then that's, you know, the name of your institute, the Integral Institute of Qigong and Tai Chi.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm just really someone who sees the patterns, you know,
Yep.
the system within the system within the system, and to look at nature that's not corrupted, and get information from there about what's actually natural and sustainable and life-giving and life-nurturing, and then apply that to the systems that are more influenced by mind and corruption, um, to really be part of the bigger flow.
Mm,
Is
yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand how it's the small universe in the big universe. And to me, it's like, how do we think like the universe, right? If we think like it, we
Right.
act like it, we show
Yeah.
up like it recognizes itself in this form. And um, there's a nice flow of exchange of information, the right kind of information, rather than, you know, I could be exposed to the kind of information you're talking about that's can make me anxious, but I'm not that attracted to it. It's not like I used to be. I'm not as much anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's what are we attracted to, I think, and we can change what we're attracted to by our perspective and experience. That's how I would respond to that. And um, yeah,
yeah. So, like you said, if we live forever, which I'm just predisposed to that idea. I don't know that it's true, but it just seems like all the other versions are kind of naive. And then if there's no limit to where, the where part of it, I like the idea of nowhere equals now here.
yeah,
And so, we don't have to think too much about it because this, whatever it is going to just do what it does you can't even say for the rest of the history of the world, because there is no end to the world. I used to go to church, and at the last thing that the choir would sing is this phrase, world without end, amen. And I don't remember what the rest of the hymn was, but I do remember that, and it just really stuck with me. And so we don't have to worry too much about how that's all going to work, whether we have to wait until sometime for everybody to be peaceful, because somewhere in the cosmos, in the timeless sense of things, there's already peace in a net
yeah,
sense that the human mind cannot understand. And so we are called back to, well, what shall I do for the duration of my experience in this space-time realm? And of course, the answer is become more resilient, become more lighthearted, become more compassionate, become more intelligent, and pursue just the things that we just know. If we just stop thinking about all of this craziness that's going on, and this choosing of a side and being angry about it, if we just settle down, and there's Qigong.
yeah.
There's the tool for getting into the portal to a personal greatness.
That's beautiful. I would totally agree, except my language would be just slightly different in that I wouldn't use the word become because I recognize I'm already that. It's more about bringing that aspect that's already there forward, right?
Mm.
Because becoming is like somewhere in the future
Got
where,
it.
yeah. So it's
Got
all
it.
saying the same thing. I'm just trying to like watch how I know the ego will turn that word become into a project for me that will take me on a wild, ride that to no end.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you said that, because in my speaking of it, I was reflecting to the people who are listening that there's this possibility that they could pay attention to.
Mhm.
Uh, Whereas what you're saying is that there's this possibility that they could be paying attention to, which is not even somewhere. It's already here.
Right.
And our job is to reveal it and to have revelation on revelation, small revelations followed by medium revelations, followed by more small revelations, which reach the magnitude of great revelations.
Yes, and I think the big revelations for me, at least, have been, Audio Shanti is a spiritual teacher, and one quote that he said that just stuck with me is that awakening is a destructive process. So it's more about recognizing some of the beliefs we have that keep us from the direct experience of what is, like that underlying piece that's always here. Like if I believe I have to meditate for 12 hours, to get there, then it's the belief that's in the way of me experiencing that. not the reality of it being possible right now. So
Right.
the destructive process is realizing what perspectives and beliefs we have that don't serve us in being uh, having the capacity to experience what we're seeking, because what we're seeking is to not seek anymore, to find. So
Yeah, and who we seek, we already are, and Lao Tzu says, every day something for those who seek peace and fulfillment, every day something will be eliminated as opposed to gained.
that's right. That's it. Yeah. So are we willing to let go of these parts? And, that's what brings up this angst, is when we have a familiar way of being, and that familiar way of being is being challenged. Um, there's an insecurity about
Yeah.
entering an unknown territory, and we don't have our vices. Um, so if we can handle that discomfort, then we can let new information in. But if we can't enter an unknown space, then we only get to regurgitate the same information over and over and recreate the same situation in different plots and so forth. So I think what goes back to what you're saying, do we have to have a destruction, like a collapse? And I think that's the yin energy of death, right? And the opposite of death is birth. So the collapse is the letting in of the new information, like the current structures we have that govern society have just choked the creativity out of
Mm.
things. And so for new information to come in, that there has to be a cracking and a dissolving, and then new structures will be built to include the new information, and eventually they'll become too tight and restricted.
Yeah.
They'll collapse, and so yeah, that's like,
Wow. Thank you.
yeah, it's uncomfortable for sure though, and because we can only see a tiny bit, we need other people to share their perspectives so we get a sense of the bigger picture. Um, yeah,
Well,
being
and what thrills me is when the conversation goes beyond myself and yourself to the people who are listening, but then that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when those people start talking to other people in their lives about these things, and one of the things that I notice is that when we ask people who come to Qigong classes, uh, uh, you know, they might say, "Oh, this is so great. I love this. I love Qigong." And then the teacher says, well, yeah, excellent. And I'm sure you're practicing at home, right? And then the person says, oh, no, I only just do it when I'm here with you. And yeah, I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
And so when that cracks,
Right.
when the person says, yes, I can do this when I'm by myself. I don't need a book. I don't need a video. I don't need a teacher. I have a practice. And in my practice, I'm dealing with all these things that I talk to myself about all the time, and, and cultivating the capacity to open little spaces where there's not a lot of that chattering going on. And of course, being invited by myself to raise my hand takes the place of that angst increasing thought. And
Mhm.
then when my own self says to myself, now pass that hand in front of your face while you're exhaling, that occupies that space with something that's happening in the present moment. And so all that shouting that's going on everywhere about what didn't work in the past and what might not work in the future is replaced with the intent to be present. And in that presence then comes the little revelations and the medium-sized revelations. And then they all accumulate into the big revelations, which can then actually lead to a different kind of a decision when I'm something simple, like standing in front of the refrigerator, deciding what to gobble down next.
Mm.
Am I going to nourish myself, or am I going to just soothe myself with a kind of some sort of food that really is acting as a drug within my body to make me feel like going to sleep, basically.
Mm. Yes, it's all, how to say it, this everybody's like confronting stuff that's coming up, all the old patterns that don't serve us anymore are coming up to be confronted. And we want to push them away and avoid them and eat the thing that makes us numb so we don't have to face it. But it's like you say, these hard times that come up, it's like I'm feeling this anxiety, and I know there's this Qigong breathing exercise I can do that will help me. So it's the pressure of the uncomfortable that helps us refine our practices if we're choosing consciously um, to not be a victim, but to be a creator of our life, right?
Amen.
Yeah. And that's what we're moving. I believe the culture is being moved in a way where hopefully we're getting to the point where we recognize if yeah, the victimization feeling like that's that lower vibration of staying in an old pattern, right? That just creates more victimization. When we're ready, when we suffered enough, maybe we would be ready to take a different path, make different
Yeah.
choices, and rise above that. And because I've been there where I've been felt victimized by my sensitivity, like overwhelmed and
Oh God, I know. Woo.
yeah, exactly. And then I realized at one point that my sensitivity wasn't about me, it was a gift for others. And then that's when things changed and I started to see my sensitivity differently, related to it differently. I didn't feel victimized by it anymore. I like get the shovel out and start diverting that rain towards the tree so it doesn't spill into the ocean,
Yeah.
and redirect, some of that energy in a positive way that can benefit others.
Yeah, I think we share that. And, a little bit of insight that I can share about uh, taking that a step further is that here at the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, we've our goal is to train all these people who will go into all these communities and help all these other people. Like we say, we train thousands to inspire millions to heal themselves for free.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've noticed about this problem that people have with having a practice is in training people to be teachers, the people who end up actually teaching are the ones who end up developing a practice, except for a very small number of people. Some people go to a workshop, they just take it on, they read books, they do videos, and they figure it out, and then they come to the place where they can practice on their own. But most people actually uh, can't do that for all kinds of reasons. It has to do with space-time, what we think we need to do or should do, the people in our lives, the training that we've had, and so forth. And so one of the things that kind of hooks people in to the whole Qigong world is the is the vision of the possibility of just having everybody in the world know how to do Qigong or Tai Chi or yoga or meditation or all those together, because I'm guessing that you probably do at least a little bit of yoga and some meditation as well as Qigong and maybe Tai Chi too. So people who shall we say mature themselves into this realm of cultivation, not only cultivating the body, but especially cultivating the mind, the character, because it's the character that decides to do the practice. And so if we become a teacher, and I'll just shamelessly admit that I'm promoting that everybody who thinks that it's a kind of a cool idea should do it, because the world needs probably, okay, so there's 6 billion people in the world. We need probably like 100 million, or maybe even 100 million teachers to help people into the realm of personal cultivation. And so what I've noticed, having trained 3,000 teachers and practice leaders, myself and the staff of the IQTC, is that often teachers will say that is in the teaching that I practiced enough to be able to have a practice on my own. And so what we're trying to do is build a bridge for people to get into the practice. And some people come across the workshop bridge and they just get it. They come to Esalen for a week, and and then they practice Qigong for the rest of their lives. But most people, it doesn't work like that. And so we have this other bridge. And so when you think like, well, to be a teacher, I have to have a business. No, you can teach for free. To be a teacher, I have to build a community of people who want to follow me. No, you can go to the library or your church or a old person's home nearby and volunteer. And even the Veterans Administration takes in people who are trained to be teachers to without having to have a business, or without having to have a mailing list, or without having to have a following, to get in front of people who are suffering and would benefit from just some simple access to this whole concept of cultivating the body, the mind, and the spirit in an integrated sort of way. So how are we going to do this? I think if someone like you is an influencer, who you have a community of people who lean forward and think that what you say has value, and you have people in your astrology work, and in your I Ching work, and in your Qigong work, and as well as the people who are listening now. And that's so powerful. It's just providing a place. And it doesn't even need to be limited in space or time, because we now have the internet, so that you can put all this stuff up and people can come to it at the pace, whatever pace they wish. So anyway, I guess I stumbled into a revelation of my own vision for how this whole idea can work in this troubled world. And if you don't mind, I will just invite people who are thinking, "Oh, yeah, maybe," to like look a little further into becoming a practice leader or a teacher.
Yes, yes, I do invite you to share that, and that you do have a training coming up in the spring. You have multiple trainings, but the one in particular is a level 1 Qigong instructor training coming up, and we're recording this now in 2024. It's what's the date? February 7th today.
Oh,
So
yeah. And so, we've done these trainings now, level 1, level 2, level 3 teacher trainings since the year 2000. And so we've trained like these thousands of people. So the vision is we train thousands to inspire millions to heal themselves for free. Well, we've only got 3,000, so we can put the S on the end of the 1,000, because we're already there with that. And it's just, going forward in a very inspiring and powerful sort of way. And so on an annual basis, we do a bunch of trainings. And so I'm pretty sure that in the notes for our time together, that maybe even right away, you can put the dates for our training that's starting in March, as well as our training at the Omega Institute in June. But then eventually we'll replace that, or maybe we can put the calendar there too, so that people can find trainings off into the future as well.
Yes, yes. Since what we're speaking about is timeless, this this information, hopefully more and more people will come across it, and then the relevant timely information for the trainings will be available in the notes at the calendar link you mentioned. Yeah, I've just been really honored to be a conduit for sharing this. I find that if I look back on my life, there's a pattern, and I tend to be positioned, and I'm not doing this. My personality isn't choosing this. It's just what gets done through me as I get positioned into fields of information that are coming into the mainstream but aren't there yet. Like they're in the subtle field, right? So before yoga was popular, I was certified and trained in yoga, and I educated people in the Midwest where I lived at the time what yoga was and why they should, explore it and the benefits. And then once that took hold and I got other people certified and teachers replaced me, then, it seemed like I moved into the Qigong and bringing more information forward about that because it's lesser known in the West. Um, and so there is this movement when we get into times like we are where things are collapsing. There seems to be also it's met with the remedy, if you will, for
Mm,
how we can um, be with collapse and be with a sense of how to self-regulate in the times like that. And these tools come at that time. And so what you're saying about trying to get people to have a regular practice is that it has to become a habit, right? I mean, it has to become familiar, and Qigong is unfamiliar to people. And so
yep.
I feel like my role and your role and everyone else who's inspired to learn and share this, our role is to educate people what the value is and give people direct experience of it over and over until it takes root in their life and they are doing it on their own, and then
Yes.
they can pass it because we can't really transmit something we haven't embodied. We can talk
That's,
about
yeah,
it, but
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we're on the same page for that, and we'll see how the year of the dragon unfolds in that regard. It could be. I mean, I'm I'm just assuming that even in the face of all my former assumptions about how the world would be a better place, haven't actually seemed to work out as well as I thought they could. I'm just still right on the assumption that the year of the dragon is going to be like the breakthrough when peace breaks out, and the world, the preferred world of everyone on both sides, whether it's the geopolitical distant both sides or whether it's the home-based red and blue both sides, that they just like somehow get wowed by the things that they have in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm,
Yes, yes, and the bottom line is consciousness, right? We're all the same consciousness, or however you want to refer to it, chi or the Tao, or yeah, that when we acknowledge that that is what's moving through us, and the difference is our design consciousness is having a unique experience of itself in all these different forms. And my sense is that it's just seeking to exchange information with itself. And I like to be a form through which it can do so without projection and judgment, but just pure curiosity.
mm, pure curiosity. Amen. Hey, would it be okay if I ring my gong as we're finishing?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just ring it one time and we can all bring our intentions and consciousness to these beautiful ideas that we've been sharing. Posture, breath, and mind.
Mm. Thank you, Roger. I just remember the first time I met you in the training, you had your bowl and you brought it out and you told us all that you can get a lot of authority if you have one of these. It was so funny.
Yeah, well, I believe it's true.
Yeah.
You know, it creates like a something that is not very usual. To be able to be the person who, in a period of somewhere around 20 seconds, creates a few moments of the unusual. That's very powerful.
Yeah, and it's vibration, beyond words. It's like something you can really feel, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, we're all feeling and experiencing the same thing. So thank you for bringing that cohesion in with that.
You are welcome. Yeah, let's do it again and again.
Okay, my friend, thanks so much for your time again, and everyone for listening. All the notes will be below, and you can find out about the trainings that Rogers Institute is offering, and stay in touch for more conversations like these. Bye for now, Roger, and everyone. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye. Take care.